just introduce yourself? Tell us your name and what you do. You're wearing very, very interesting clothing. So what is your name and what do you do?
Right. I'm the Reverend Joan Teresa Hart, and I'm a deacon. That's some of the funny clothes I wear. And the other is I'm an Oblate of the Benedictine Order.
And what is an oblate?
An Oblate is a person that gives their life to God. They're attached to a convent, but they're not in the convent. They're out in the world. The sisters are in the convent. The Oblates are out in the world. And we live the life and follow a rule of Saint Benedict. And each rule is suited to the way that we live. So mine is suited to before it was nursing, and now it's as a deacon.
And I've met you through St Jude's Church, Brighton, in the southern suburbs of Adelaide, and we both go to St Jude's Church. So what is your role as a deacon at St Jude's? What do you do there?
First of all, the deacon is a servant. Our emblem is a towel over your arm, and of course you wear the back to front collars and all that. But our role is as a servant, and we are there to serve at the church. We're mostly a kind of liaison between the parishioners and the priest and the bishop, maybe. We are there to enable people to fulfill their own ministries. We're there to serve them. We're there to listen to them, which is most of my work. We're there to visit them when they're sick. We're there to take them Holy Communion, which has been reserved because the deacon cannot consecrate, only the priest. And we are always standing on the left-hand side of the priest or the bishop as their servant. And we take all our orders from them. And we don't presume to do anything we shouldn't.
And I've seen you leading prayers, reading from the Bible during services. You play music. So you're quite active in the liturgy and the worship too.
That is the deacon's role. But we must never forget that your chief ministry is as a servant. So that's why you're not consecrating the elements on the altar. You're by the side, you're assisting, you're always there to help. And if the priest wants you to do this, you do it. Naturally, you can argue if you think it's wrong, but mostly you say yes.
And may I ask how old you are?
93.
And you're so active. We've just had Palm Sunday and we all met at the end of a long road down by the sea and walked behind donkeys with a group of people from other churches. And you were whizzing along on your walking frame and singing the hymns. You're quite fit, aren't you, for 93?
Oh, yes, I am. I put that down to all my life, going through London Blitz and everything else. I've always walked or ridden a bicycle. I've ridden all around England. I go 45 miles just to see the sea and cycle back. When I came to Australia as a £10 pom, all I had was a bike. And I had to pay £10 for it at Tilbury Docks, otherwise they wouldn't let me bring it. And when I arrived at the hostel, I had to cycle from Jetts Cross area into the city because I started work 3 days after I'd arrived, because you come to a job, always when you're a migrant in the 1950s, and cycle home again. And I always had a headwind, I thought. And that first year, I had the magpies swoop down on me, and I wondered what had hit me. And I'm riding along, hanging on and waving my arm to stop it. I'd never known anything like it. And when I went and started nursing, I cycled to Glenelg always for the 6 years, and then at Flinders Medical Centre for 12 years. I always cycled.
And can I ask you, when did you join the Benedictines? We're sitting in a house near the church at the moment called Benedictine House. But when did you actually join this order, if that's the correct language?
1979. I became an inquirer. No, earlier, I'm sorry. In 1978, I became an inquirer. You do that for a year. Then you're a novice for a year. So that's 79, isn't it? And then you're, for the life, if you still wish and if they think you're worthy, an oblate. And you renew your vows every year on Benedictine Day.
That's amazing.
It's a long time.
Yes, I'm just marvelling at you. And the clothing that you wear, is that what all oblates wear?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a...
This is a scapular.
Right.
And you wear black or white in summer at the top or black in winter. And if you go to your own church, because there's a lot of oblates in Adelaide, and I'm the eldest and the head one, we're all ministering in our churches. This is one of the parts of being an oblate. You also minister in your church. You're not just floating on your own. And you're always answerable to your chaplain. And my chaplain is Father Scott Moncrief at St. George's, Goodwood. She's chaplain for the South Australian chapter, which I'm in.
When did you first realise that faith, Christian faith, was important to you?
In the war with the Blitz.
So where were you born in the United Kingdom?
In East End, London. I'm a Cockney. I can't hear it now, but I am.
And what was it about the Blitz? And again, I never like to assume the young understand, but it's the Second World War. The Nazis are attacking many nations, including the United Kingdom. Just briefly, what was the Blitz?
Shocking. We were bombed in the end day and night because East End is near the docks. What really impressed me, I'm an Anglo-Catholic. That's in the Anglican Church, which is a wee bit more Catholic, I suppose you could say. We had a wonderful elderly priest, because we only had elderly people left. Everybody else is fighting. We had no dentists, we had no whatever, except retired people. That's why I'm like I am with my teeth. We never had dentists. He would come every time we were bombed in his black cassock. He would walk amongst us. We were his parishioners, and he would be there for us. And that impressed me as a 6 to 10-year-old when I was evacuated to Lancashire. I always thought what a wonderful thing it was that this priest would care so much for people, not just his own parishioners, but people. And the other thing was our mother church was St. Paul's Cathedral. So when we were bombed, we would get up in the morning and we could still see the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral if you looked in the right direction. And while it was there, we knew we were okay.
Yes. My mother was a Londoner in the Second World War, and she used to say the same thing.
Yes.
Amazing. And the decision, so you came to Australia, you became a nurse at Flinders, which is a major hospital not far from where we are now, really. But what made you join the Benedictines? That's a whole new layer of commitment to faith, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I was here at St. Jude's in, I think it was 1975. Father John Stevenson was our priest. And I started speaking to him. And I said I felt I was somehow being called to something deeper than just being a parishioner. And at the time I was also visiting people, but I was just an ordinary parishioner. And he had me on the parish council. And he said, well, come up to Retreat House. And that was at the Lair. There's sisters there, you might like to talk to them. So I did. And I liked what they said. It seemed to answer this inner call. So I started going with the sisters up there. I would just be a volunteer making tea or cleaning or watering plants or whatever. I did that in between my nursing, different duties. And later, when I was going to St. Barnabas Theological College, it was right by the side of the sisters. So we always had that contact. And I spoke to Sister Grace Mary, and she was the one, she of course died now, guided me through. Now it was CHN then, it was the Community of the Holy Name. Every September, I would go over to CHN in Melbourne, in Cheltenham, and I got to know Sister Lucy, Sister Rita, different sisters. But after a while, they felt called to a deeper prayer life because CHN is more Augustine, which is outgoing. They had places for unmarried mothers. They were with people that were started with that awful club disease,
AIDS.
AIDS. They were always in the forefront. When they started in Melbourne, they were with the women in the streets and they were looking after them. Whereas this group of sisters decided they were called more to quietness and prayer. So I felt the same. So when they were offered a farmhouse with a tractor shed and paddocks and sheep and an orchard to start a community in Wangaratta, I moved with them. And then we became Benedictines. And our life was of quietness, prayer. I lived with them for 2 years until I hurt my back. And then I had to come back to Adelaide. But I'm still an outside Benedictine.
And were these sisters Catholic or Anglican?
Anglican. We're very Anglican, but we're what we call Anglo-Catholic.
Right.
And it's so akin to the Catholic Church. We have no difference, except we've got the Archbishop and they've got the Pope.
I'm 71 and I went to Anglican girls' schools, and I remember meeting Anglican sisters, Anglican nuns, on a trip to Queensland, but I don't think it's well known in
was that Sister Esme's group up in Queensland? They're still there.
That's fantastic to know. Of course, I'm so sorry, I can't remember. I was a schoolgirl, but I don't think the general public are aware that there are Anglican sisters.
No, they're not. When I'm sitting at bus stops and people talk to me, which they do, they often think I'm Catholic. When I'm in the shops, Catholic people come and talk to me, and I listen to them, and I have to say gently, well, I'm actually Anglican. But they just didn't know that there was an Anglican Order of Sisters, and we've been going since 1800 and something in England.
I just want to turn, if I may, to what has faith and your prayer life and now your service at St Jude's at Brighton, one or two key things it's added to your life. What has it given you?
Well, first of all, the strength to go through the war. The strength to be evacuated to families I didn't know, to be away from my family for 4 years. We didn't get together till I was 13. 13. I was in this sort of boarding school thing for evacuees. And that's where I learned a little more about faith, which is in that article I've given to you of another priest. Also coming to Australia, an unknown place. And the next thing was, years later, my husband developed Alzheimer's. He was a missioner in the Uniting Church, worked in the mission in Adelaide in Franklin Street. Wonderful, wonderful person. I was walking out with him in England and had to leave him. And it was immigration stopped 2 years before he could come. He had to be 2 years in Melbourne. So we were engaged and then we were married here 2 years later. But the strength from being what I am, to look after George for 11 years with Alzheimer's, which, believe you me, is not easy, even if you're a nurse. There was no help in those days. We didn't have people popping in and doing things. You had the patient in your home 24, and all the things they went through. They go along on the plateau and then they drop. They would never go back up again. They'd go along and they'd drop. And in the end, they didn't know you. They were on the bed. You had to clean them. You had to everything for them because they just didn't know. And then the last 9 months of his life, I couldn't lift him anymore. I couldn't do things because I got this back problem from years of nursing, I suppose. He went to the Masonic nursing home. And I went every night because he would not take the tablets from the sisters. He would not eat his food. So I would go every night, give him his tablets, tickle his throat here. So he had to swallow because he used to spit them into flower pots and things when the nurse came to feed him. And then I would cycle back up to Seeker for my church and say evening prayer with the priest. And I did that all the time except Sundays in that 9 months. The last 2 nights of his life, I stayed on a little sort of couchy thing by the side of him while he had this morphine pumped into him. I'd just gone home in the morning to have a shower when they rang me and said he'd died. So I went back again. But the strength of being an oblate, of being a prayerful person, I suppose, and knowing that God loved me and loved us and never fails. His love never fails.
I hear 2 things in that story. One is that there were individuals who were inspirational to you, the priest that visited in the East End and others that you've met. You were inspired by the good life lived by others.
Yes.
And then also your faith and your faith in God and that sense of love, you were able, duty is a word these days you don't hear so much, but you were able to do what you felt was the right thing to do, even when it was hard. Is that?
Yes. And because she knew he was always with you. You were never, ever alone. People often said to me, don't you feel lonely? You never feel lonely because you're never alone. He's always with you. And that's what I try to pass on to my people when they're in their tightness, sickness. One last night I was speaking to, was in tears after the Tenebrae. You're not alone.
And Tenebrae, that was a service at St. Jude's last night because I'm talking to you at the beginning of Easter, a very holy time. I guess I have just 2 more questions. One is, you have children. How many children do you have?
Right. 5.
Oh, wow.
I had 6 pregnancies, but I lost 2 because I'm Rh negative and George was O positive. And we fostered my eldest child, who's Aboriginal.
I see. And Joan, how do they view the life you've chosen as a Benedictine?
I think they think Mum's mad. Even when I went into the church, even though they're all church people, every one of them, I think they think Mum's a bit mad.
And I just accept that it was ever thus with children. But I'm thinking of the young people today. You know, as we speak today, the world is in a very turbulent place with global conflict in the Middle East, in Iran, economic dilemmas that are affecting ordinary people. Yes, it's housing prices that are causing many young people to fear, will I be able to buy a home and build a life with a partner and so on. What is your message to the young? Because you saw the Second World War, you saw the world smashed to pieces. So I feel your generation knows what it's like to think, oh my goodness, the world's in a mess. What's your message to the young?
I also saw the recovery, which was amazing, and how nations grew together. And we had all those different organizations, through Europe and everything. I have got 24 great-grandchildren, and I've got twins on the way, and I've got a 2-year-old great-great-grand. Now the great-children speak to me, and they say, and my grandson that's here, what is the word? Why are we living, sort of thing? There are a lot of people around them committing suicide because they don't think there's a future. And I keep saying to them, there is a future. You must keep faith. It does seem bad now, but I know that God is in control of this world. He has the world, I say, in his hands. So don't give up. I've been asked to pray for a suicidal boy who's only 18 because he cannot see the point of living. And that's what's attacking a lot of our young people today. They say, our generation made such a mess of the world. Well, maybe we did. And the generation after are taking the brunt of it. And this generation, and I was a Lat teacher for 9 years at Brighton Primary, there's no sense of future. There's no sense of hope. But also there are a generation who have not been to church. I think that's the void that's there. There's nothing in the middle to fill, so they fill it with drugs. They fill it with togetherness in their way of being in a gang or whatever, because they belong. You need to belong to something. And I think that's the problem. They've found we've let them down. And we probably had.
And so where do you find the hope? At the end of life, you were towards the end of your life. Where do you find the hope?
Because I still have this belief in God. I still have the belief he has us in his hands. And I still have belief that all will be well. Like Teresa said, all will be well. Yeah.
Thank you.